Hey guys, this is John Spier with the Arc Flash Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today I wanted to talk about, the more I see people come in and out of the trade, the more I realize it's not for everyone. So here are like 4, maybe 5 things that you can consider before you even enter the trade. Okay? So, number one, it is hard work. You are going to be working hard every single day, having to wake up very early, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning every day, and being on the job site or the shop or wherever the project's at for the day. So that is one thing to consider, that you will be waking up early, and you will be waking up early to work. Physically, it is pretty demanding. You at very minimum need to be able to pick up 50 pounds. And that's kind of like the average weight of like 4-inch EMT pipe, So you kind of have to be a little bit physically built. The wire spools are pretty heavy. You can throw out your back and you can mess up your body really easily. And, a lot of the things that we do, if you don't do it properly, so always lifting with your legs and all that good stuff. So, number one is that it is physically demanding. And you will have to wake up early, to accomplish a lot of goals. I'd say number two is probably like, after a while it can become a little bit repetitive. I guess it's probably the best way to put it. You'll find yourself in, situations where if you're on trim out, which is essentially pitting the final devices. It's the final stage of construction where you're literally pitting the trim pieces on the project, to be like your receptacles, your cover plates, your switches, your occupancy sensors, things like that. The final quote-unquote touches of the project. That can get really repetitive really quickly, doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. However, it is a task that needs to get done, so you will find yourself, like, sometimes if you're on a bigger project, you will be doing that same task over and over and over again. But at the end of the day or whatever, it needs to get done, and someone's got to do it. So it's typically the lowest guy on the totem pole, or the person who needs to learn the most about that particular activity, and it's a pretty easy task to send someone on, where, like, as a foreman or as a project manager, you assume that it's pretty hard to mess up through wires once it's explained to you, like 1 or 2 times, But I've seen people do it, so it's one of those things. I would say, like, the third thing is probably exposure to the weather. Would probably be another primary thing that you would want to consider if you're thinking that, like, electrician is like an inside job, where you're working on electrical inside a building all the time. So being an electrician, you will find yourself working outside about 50% of the time. And the reason I say that is because electricians are typically one of the first group of tradesmen to show up, and typically one of the last to leave. And it's just the way that our trade is set up, right? If you're doing underground, we need to be there for the underground phase, and we need to be digging trenches, putting PVC in the ground, setting our electrical rooms, things of that nature. When the walls get up, we need to be putting, MC pipe, whatever, Romex in the walls, and doing our rough-in stage, and then when the roof gets put on, we got to get our HVAC stuff done, and and then once the walls go up, we got to get our receptacles on. And so electrician is more of you're there on the project pretty much the entire time. There are certain applications where you'll find yourself on a slow point, and where you might be ahead and you can pull off for a little bit, but for the majority of the time you're going to find yourself where you're consistently at a job doing something all the time, especially on a bigger project. So I would say that would be number 3, is that you're going to be in the elements, and a big portion of the elements is because we're there all the time, and half of the stuff is outside, wall packs, HVAC units, street lights, parking lot lights, monument signs, drive-through signs, whatever you can think of that's outside, underground stuff before the job even gets started, things like that. Let's say number 4 is probably the possibility of not being home. As electricians, you kind of follow the money. So wherever that project is that has the money is where you end up going. Sometimes you have a say in that decision, sometimes you don't. Kind of have to go where the money is, right? Like, that's part of this trade, and that's part of the kind of attitude that you have, that you may be out of town, and it might just be like an inconvenience out of town. Like, inconvenience out of town for me is like 45 to an hour away, right? Like, it's inconvenient, but like it's totally doable, so it goes along with the fact that yes, it's inconvenient, that you have to drive 45 minutes to work or an hour to work, and then be there for 8 to 10 hours, and then drive your happy butt back, and then instead of, working your 8 hours like you would, you were 10 minutes away, then come home. I mean, by the time you're done working an 8-hour day when you're inconveniently out of town, it's like a 10-hour day. So you end up working like 50 hours, but only getting paid for 40 because you're driving 2 hours, an hour there, an hour back. So, that's the inconvenient part of it, right? But, once again, you, as an electrician, you signed up for this possibility, so I think that's something that, maybe not be mentioned right off the front end, is that, hey, you have to like manage your money on the front end because you might go out of town, so managing your financial situation becomes like almost like a daunting task, but it's something that needs to be done in order for you to progressively work wherever, right? Like, just a little bit of planning can go a long way. Just having like even like $1,000 in the bank, just in case, like, gas prices are the way they are right now, and you have to work out of town inconveniently or whatever. Like, that's an hour away, and you're not getting paid drive time because of whatever stipulation that the state has that requires the company to not pay you drive time for that particular project, because it's within 60 miles or some stupid little thing, or you're not in a company vehicle, you're in your personal, so there's all kinds of aspects to that. But these are all little things that, like, to definitely consider before, jumping into the apprenticeship. Um, you know, I myself, I love the trade. I loved what it's brought to me, and um, I wouldn't change it for the world. But the more people I see kind of dip out of the trades, it's usually for silly reasons, or at least in my head, silly reasons why. That, they just assume that they would be in town on scale projects or what have you, like for their whole life. Which, that doesn't typically happen, I worked for a lot of electrical outfits, and I was always out of town at one point or another, working or project managing or whatever, so it is part of it. But there are so many good things about it as well. You'll never get to see like a happier group of people than construction workers, in my personal opinion. I think the very fact that, like, people working with their hands gives them a lot of joy and like ownership of how they feel as a craftsman. And there's other people out there just doing it for a check, but you can always tell those people versus the real tradesmen. And if you are a real tradesman or up for the challenge of being a tradesman, it is a wonderful field that doesn't end. It doesn't have to stop at being an apprentice. It doesn't have to stop at being a foreman, superintendent, project management. I mean, you can go as far as being the owner if you're committed enough of a company. So it's a choose your own adventure thing. It just depends on your work ethic and your work ability and your ability to analyze situations. So it can be the best thing or the worst thing depending on your attitude versus it. So I hope you guys like this little podcast. Once again, my name is John Spier. I am with the Arc Flash podcast. I will be uploading as much as I can, as frequently as I can. It's usually when the kid's sleeping. So I'll do my very, very best. Hope you guys have a great day. I will put a link down below so you guys can check out some, other fun things that Warhammer Electric is doing, which you can see on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that good stuff. We're on YouTube, obviously, and that's where you can find the Arc Flash podcast is on YouTube, Warhammer Electric's page. We will be starting Instagram for the Arc Flash podcast, where we do little snips of the podcast. So hope you guys have a great day. Once again, my name is John Spier with the Arc Flash podcast. You guys be safe out there.